Would you like to learn how to interpret the Four of Wands when it shows up in a reading? Stay tuned for 3 real-world examples. Hi everybody, I'm Sue Ellen Clayton. Welcome to my channel where we're learning how to read tarot one card at a time. In this video, we're diving deep into the Four of Wands. I'll be showing you how I interpreted this card in 3 different readings so that you can more confidently interpret it when reading for yourself or others. I will be using the Radiant Rider-Waite Tarot, and there is a link below. To me, the Four of Wands is one of the happiest cards in the deck because it shows 2 people celebrating a joyous event, usually some kind of milestone such as a graduation, wedding, or homecoming. We can see people dancing in the background, so there's a sense of community. Fours represent stability, as do houses, so the happiness is lasting. We also see the largest castle in the deck, which represents safety, security, and protection for the happy couple. This is definitely the card you want to see if somebody asks if they're going to pass the bar exam, buy a home, or get married. When reading tarot, context is important, so the meaning can vary depending on where it shows up in a reading. If you want to take an in-depth look at the card's symbolism and history, which I highly recommend, please check out my video on the Four of Wands in the link below. In this video, we'll be looking at 3 readings that contain the Four of Wands, and they all have to do with the complexity of family life that may or may not live up to the ideals shown in this card. In the first reading, called Empty Nest, we look at a mother who is reimagining her life after her youngest child graduates from high school. In the second reading, called Should I Move On?, we figure out whether a woman should end her relationship with her boyfriend. And the third reading, called Letting Go, provides guidance to a woman with adult children who's struggling to find happiness in family gatherings. So let's get started with reading number 1, Empty Nest. This question was posted by Melanie, who is wondering how she will find meaning in her life now that her youngest is graduating from high school. I'll put a link to the full reading in the comments. Melanie has 3 children, and the youngest was now leaving the nest. This child had some learning differences, and managing his schoolwork was pretty much a full-time job for Melanie. Now that he'll be graduating and moving on, Melanie is afraid that she'll lose her purpose and meaning in life. Melanie drew 3 cards. In the past position, we have the Four of Wands. In the present position, we have Justice. In the future position, we have the Three of Wands. In the past position, the Four of Wands is about celebrations, and I interpret this to be that Melanie's son is graduating. The yellow foreground and sky tell us that it's a very happy day. We see people celebrating behind them. The flowers indicate that it's springtime, normally the time of graduation, and the beginning of a new phase in life. This is a card of excitement, joy, and new beginnings. It looks like both Melanie and her son are ready to pass through a doorway and into the next phases of their lives. The clothing is significant. Both people are wearing white underdresses, which signifies innocence, new beginning, and peace. Melanie and her son are both starting anew. Melanie is wearing a red robe that symbolizes love and passion. Her son is wearing blue, which is a calmer, more tranquil color. I think that Melanie is far more emotional than her son, which, in my experience, is how parents view milestones in their children's lives. In this position, the Four of Wands has the traditional celebratory meaning. I don't think that Melanie feels any regret about the past, as she knows that she did everything possible for her son. In fact, as the years go by, she'll look back at this time as being extremely happy. Although it meant sacrificing some of her own goals, Melanie is happy to know that, thanks to her, her son grew up in a stable environment with community support. In the present position, we have Justice. The Justice card is about facts, fairness, and balance. We see the sword in her right hand that shows she will cut through the truth. In her left hand, we see scales, which demonstrates fairness and balance. In Melanie's case, I think Justice shows that she has spent the last 20 years of her life trying to balance her needs with those of her kids, but the truth is that the kids' needs won out. If she looks at the situation objectively, As the Justice card always does, she knows that she's done her duty. She's paid her mothering dues. She's put her youngest on the path to success. He's graduated. Now it's time for things to balance out, and she can take time to do what she wants without feeling any guilt. In the future position, we see the Three of Wands. The Three of Wands is a card about planning for the future. This figure is often considered to be a successful entrepreneur. I think that figure represents Melanie, who is looking at the fruits of her labor, which is the metaphorical equivalent of a fleet of ships. Because Melanie is high above the water, she's considered to be very successful and maybe even driven to achieve greater success. Remember, in the Four of Wands, I said that it looked like Melanie and her son were walking through a doorway into the next phase of their life. Here we see Melanie standing between wands that form another doorway. Melanie has been able to use her skills as a mother and homemaker and walk through what looks like yet another portal into the next phase of her life. Melanie is wearing the same color as Justice, a red robe that shows love and passion, as well as her inner strength. The green cloak represents growth, and we can guess that she's grown her business into a very successful enterprise. She also has a blue sleeve, which can indicate that her passion is balanced out by calmness. These are the same colors that we saw in the first card. She is a woman in control. When I saw this card, I immediately pictured Melanie as a grandmother waiting for her family to come home. She's watching the ships and hoping that her kids and grandkids are returning home to spend time with her. Although she has become a successful businesswoman, she has not abandoned her role as a mother or her love for her children. Reading number 2 is called Should I Move On? And I'll link to the reading below. This reading was requested by someone I will call Hazel. Her question was, should I end my relationship with my boyfriend and move on? In this reading, the Four of Wands shows us what Hazel's life will be like if she leaves her boyfriend. Card number 1, the Knight of Wands, is in the stay position. This represents what Hazel will experience if she chooses to stay in her relationship. Card number 2, the Four of Wands, is in the leave position and reflects what Hazel will experience if she moves on from her relationship. And card number 3, the Two of Wands, is in the advice position. This card gives guidance about Hazel's best course of action for her highest good. It's interesting to note that this reading is entirely the suit of wands. Wands are linked to the element of fire and are all about taking action. That makes sense as it's a very action-oriented question. Does she stay or leave? However, it's interesting that this is a reading about Hazel's relationship, so I would expect to see at least one cup to signify love and emotion. Nope. It seems this relationship is all about doing things. Card number 1 represents what Hazel will experience if she chooses to stay in her relationship. The Knight of Wands can represent someone who has incredible energy, confidence, and passion, but doesn't always stop to think about the consequences of what they're doing. So the upside of Hazel's relationship is a lot of passion, excitement, and adventure. The downside of the Knight of Wands is that he can be very impulsive and inconsistent. I picture the Knight of Wands as meeting her at the door after work on Friday with tickets to a Taylor Swift concert, and then refusing to speak to her for the entire weekend because he didn't like the way she smiled at the ticketing agent. If Hazel stays in this relationship, it will be an intense time. The couple will go from love to hate to passionate make-up sex, probably in the course of an hour. When the relationship is good, it is fabulous. When it's bad, Hazel feels like she's in the depths of despair. In short, staying in the relationship will mean a lot of drama. Card number 2, the Four of Wands, is in the leave position and reflects what Hazel will experience if she moves on from her relationship. Note that in the first and third cards, we see someone who is alone. In the Four of Wands, which is about what will happen if Hazel leaves the relationship, we see her with a loving partner and as part of a community. This is a card about happiness, commitment, and celebrations. The Four of Wands often signifies a marriage, as we can see a couple on a stage with a structure covered in flowers. It shows Hazel in a committed relationship and supported by the people around her. She is no longer alone. Hazel's new relationship is the opposite of the drama-filled life with the Knight of Wands. The Four of Wands, like all fours, signifies stability. We can remember this because a table has four legs and is very stable. The castle behind them signifies stability. I feel like Hazel will be marrying someone like an accountant, and she will know exactly what to expect of him. If the couple goes to a Taylor Swift conference, the tickets will be part of their budget, and Hazel will know the itinerary months in advance. Instead of fighting and make-up sex, the couple will be content spending their evenings watching Netflix and enjoy scheduled lovemakings on Wednesday and Saturday nights. This card is yellow to signify happiness. We see a lot of foliage in this card, which is in stark contrast to the desert environment in the previous card. Greenery represents growth and abundance. This indicates that Hazel will grow and blossom in her new life. It looks like life will be good for Hazel if she moves on from her current relationship. We see her in a stable, happy place where she's met a loving partner and is surrounded by community. Card number 3, the Two of Wands, is in the advice position. This card gives guidance about what Hazel's best course of action is for her highest good. In the Two of Wands, we see Hazel having to make a choice. She's holding on to one of the wands with her left hand. Her left hand is controlled by the right side of her brain and represents intuition and emotions. I think that this represents Hazel's life in the Four of Wands, which is happiness and community, which is something that she intrinsically knows is good for her. In Hazel's right hand, we see the world. This is the logical side of her body, and I feel like it represents the adventures that she would experience with her knight. There is still some appeal to the passionate, exciting life with him. They could travel the world together, which is more exciting than the stability we saw in the middle card. At first glance, it seems as if Hazel is looking somewhat longingly to the past and remembering the good times. However, if you look closely, Hazel is actually looking at the wand in her left hand and not at the world. So I think she knows that choosing the stable, happy life will be much better than the hot-headed, inconsistent, and immature world of the Knight of Wands. Although he promises her the world, she knows that the reality is that she would be lonely and miserable. In our final reading, we'll talk about the reversed Four of Wands. But first, if you're getting benefit from this video, I hope you'll take a moment to subscribe. It's free for you, and you'll get notified when I post videos, so you won't miss anything. It will also help me to grow this channel. Our final reading was conducted for a client of mine who I will call Claudia, and this reading highlights the reversed Four of Wands. Claudia scheduled a reading just prior to Christmas because she was dreading the upcoming holiday. In this reading, we see the Four of Wands in the reversed position. Some of the meanings of the reversed Four of Wands include feeling like you're not part of a community, feeling invisible in a public celebration, placing too much importance on getting approval from other people, and feeling like you don't have the support of your community. Here's a bit of background. Claudia was sad that she didn't have the close relationship she craved with her 3 adult sons and their partners. It wasn't anything super concrete, like they were fighting. There's just a lot of eye-rolling when she speaks, and Claudia gets the impression that they would rather be anywhere else than spending time with her and her husband. One of her daughters-in-law can be quite critical, and it hurts Claudia, after working so hard to make Christmas a lovely occasion, to feel like her efforts were not appreciated. My first challenge was to figure out what question Claudia wanted me to answer. Claudia told me that she just wanted to get through this Christmas without getting upset, and then she'd give the situation some thought in the new year and figure out if there was anything she could do to improve the situation going forward. The question we decided on was, how can I approach our family Christmas celebration without expectations? Card number 1, the Four of Wands reversed, looked at what expectation Claudia was holding on to today. Card number 2, the Eight of Cups reversed, looked at what expectations were unhelpful for her today. Card number 3, the Five of Swords, looked at how Claudia could let these expectations go. The reverse Four of Wands told me that Claudia's expectation for Christmas did not align with reality. Much as she wants a Hallmark holiday, this has not been the case for the past several years. Expecting a castle, decorations worthy of a Christmas play, fresh flowers, and sunshine just weren't realistic. Her expectations were just setting herself up for disappointment. Another expectation that Claudia was holding on to was feeling invisible, particularly related to her son's wives and girlfriends. This was a self-fulfilling prophecy because it made her hesitant to say anything for fear of being belittled or criticized. This led us to a discussion about how the reversed Four of Wands can refer to balance and harmony within herself. We talked about what she could do to make the celebration meaningful to her personally without seeking external validation from her children. Does she need her daughter-in-law to approve of the menu to be happy? Was it necessary for her to feel heard to enjoy the day? Or, on the rare occasions that her family does get together, could she just listen quietly without any expectation of being included or validated? Finally, I suggested that she stop doing things that she doesn't want to. In the upright card, we see lovely decorations on a stage. Claudia isn't living in a Christmas pageant. She doesn't have to keep up with traditions or try to impress anybody. She has the opportunity to reshape holidays to be what she wants. And this message is reinforced by the third card. My youngest is now 27, and personally, I've made a lot of changes like I talked about with Claudia. I stopped doing Christmas stockings because they were so much work. While I appreciate the look of decorations, I don't enjoy having to put them up or take them down, so our home decorations have become pretty minimal. This past year, we got rid of our 8-foot artificial Christmas tree in favor of a much smaller 5-foot tree, and we also donated most of our ornaments. While it's definitely not as festive for visitors, they're not the ones who have to do the work. Card number 2, the Eight of Cups reversed, looked at expectations that were unhelpful for her today. In the upright position, the Eight of Cups is about letting go of or moving on from old hurts and resentments. If this were the case, Claudia would have either stopped inviting her family to the holidays or let go of her expectations that they would get along well. In the reverse position, the Eight of Cups means that Claudia is not letting go of her expectations that things will improve. This is not very helpful, as she will continue to be re-traumatized when her family doesn't arrive filled with Christmas spirit and delight to be spending the holiday with her. A better strategy would be for her to have realistic expectations and be okay with their reactions, knowing that it's only one day and the price she needs to pay if she wants to spend holidays with her children. She could even make a game of it by internally counting the eye rolls or snide comments. Card number 3, the Five of Swords, looked at how Claudia could let go of these expectations. The Five of Swords shows that Claudia is focused on winning, regardless of the collateral damage, which we see represented by the two people in the background. So I believe that her expectations for the holidays are actually harming everybody, which is probably the cause of her children's disrespect. I think the message is that Claudia needs to give up her idea of how the holidays should look because it's hurting everyone concerned. Swords are about thoughts and communication. I think that Claudia needs to have an honest discussion with her family and ask how they want to celebrate. She might be pleasantly surprised. Perhaps they'd prefer spending Christmas Day on their own rather than visiting their parents, and then all getting together the next day and ordering Chinese food and watching a movie rather than sitting through a formal dinner and a gift exchange. An open discussion would let Claudia change her focus from doing things her way, because that's the way they've always been done, and come up with a plan that makes everybody happy. I feel like my parents are a good example of this. I have 3 siblings, and by the time we were married and had children of our own, none of us lived particularly close to my parents. My brother was the closest at 40 minutes away, and I was the farthest at 3,000 miles away. Rather than complaining about not seeing us on Christmas Day, my parents came up with a new tradition, which was visiting a local casino. My parents are the most disciplined gamblers in the world. They'd each take $100 and enjoy a couple of hours of gambling, and then have lunch at their favorite buffet restaurant. Then when they got home, they'd call each of their kids, and we'd have a nice chat. It became a new tradition that they looked forward to, and it didn't put any pressure on their kids to entertain them. I hope that seeing the Four of Wands in these readings will help you interpret it when you're conducting a reading. Please leave a comment if you'd like to share your experience. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.